Hello everyone, greetings from PayTabs technical support team. In this series, you will learn how to integrate with PayTabs through our PT2 API endpoints. And we will walk you through the fourth integration type, which is the own form. For the purpose of this series, we have created a very simple Laravel project to walk you through the integration process. But feel free to follow the steps in this series with your own project, whatever the programming language or the frameworks used to integrate with PayTabs. So, let's get started. In this video, we are going to learn more about one of our follow-up transactions, which is the capture transaction. So, let's get started. The first thing you should know is that you can find the full documentation for this part inside PayTabs support portal under the article called the OwnForm APIs Integration Manual. If we navigated from the integration manual for steps 3 over here, manage transactions, we can see that here in this step we are managing your already existed transactions, meaning that whenever you have an already transaction that you want to do any transaction upon it or to follow it up like refund it, here is the place that you want to get. Now for this video we are going to learn how we can capture a transaction, but before we learn how we capture a transaction we need to do or learn the differences between our transaction types. So normally we use the sale transaction type, and we clarified that the sale transaction type, the amount will be deducted directly from the customer bank. But we have another transaction type called auth, which is or which has another flow or of deducting the payment. Meaning, whenever you use the transaction type of auth, then the payment amount will be authorized inside the customer bank until you either capture it by yourself, so taking it from the customer bank to your bank, or void it, release it back to the customer account. So this is, instead of doing the sale transaction, instead of deducting the amount directly, for some business need, you may want to do this process where you capture the amount until further confirmation, or you authorize the amount until further confirmation. Once the confirmation is done, you capture this amount to your account, or you void it back to the customer account. Now, for the next or this video and the next video, we are going to learn about the capture and the void. And the capture and void are transactions that is done upon only auth transactions, meaning that if you want to capture any transaction or to void any transaction, this transaction type must be an auth transaction. So here we are going to learn how we can capture a transaction. As you can see, it's a very simple request payload. It will contain our 7 parameters, and along with it we contain that transaction reference that you want to capture. So what we want to do now is we want to initiate a transaction, but this time we are going to get back to our configuration file and make sure that the transaction type is auth. Once we make sure that the transaction type is auth like that, now we want to initiate a normal payment. As you can see here, I'm going to use one of my test cards like that. And once I press checkout, I have a successful payment. As you can see, this transaction type is auth. So now this amount of this transaction has been authorized and held inside the customer bank. Now, what we are going to learn in this video is how we can capture this amount from the customer bank to your account. Simply, we are going to use the capture payload clarified in the solution article, and we have generated very simply over here. Okay, it contained the 7 parameter, but again, make sure that the cart amount is the amount that you want to capture. You can capture the full amount of the transaction or a partial amount of transaction, meaning in this request the amount is 100 Egyptian pound. So we can only capture 100 or less, but we can't capture more than that. So this is the first thing that you need to make sure of. The next thing that you need to make sure that you are using the same currency, and of course you will need to pass the transaction reference. So here I'm going to use this transaction reference, and I have generated a simple UI that takes the capture amount and the transaction reference. I'm going to reload the page, paste the transaction reference. So if you remember over here inside our webhook that this total amount of this transaction was 100. Now I may be able to capture the full 100, but for this I'm going to capture only 50 amount of it, so 50 Egyptian pound, like that. And once I click on capture, let's see what the error is over here. I may have something different. Yes, yes, we have a currency mismatch. This means that we are using a different currency from the one used in the old currency. So if we get back over here to our code and let's navigate to the capture UI, as you can see here, the currency or the card currency is USD and I'm making an EGB transaction. So once I change it like that, let's get back again. Let's reload our page. Let's base the transaction reference and choose the capture amount. Once we capture, it's supposed to be gone through easily. And as you can see here, I will have this I will capture 50 of this amount. And now inside the response, you can see that this is capture transaction type. Its amount is 50 and the transaction reference or the previous transaction reference in this one, which is the original transaction. This is how you can capture an amount, and now we can move to the next video.